if you're not working towards your dream, you're probably in support of someone else's, or if you don't have your own plan, you're probably helping someone else fulfill their own plan, and what they have planned for you is probably not very big and not very significant, and that would get me out of bed in the morning. That would wake me up in the night, right? Is the fact that I needed to be building something, and I just, if I wasn't headed that direction, then it just wasn't a direction I needed to be headed in anymore.
E-Mark and A-Mark is on.
What?
E-Mark and A-Mark is on.
Who?
Tell your friends, tell your dog, tell your mom.
Tell what?
E-Mark and A-Mark is on.
Oh, hey mom. E-Mark and A-Mark is on.
And we are back with another episode of E-Mark and A-Mark. This week, this time, we are underground in our makeshift COVID-19 bunker here in the garage. I don't know where we are. Where are we, E-Mark?
We are definitely in a garage. I mean, yeah, this is a garage. We're in it.
And it's underground. It is
underground.
an underground garage in an undisclosed location.
Which we can't tell you.
And we're going to do things a little bit different. It is just E-Mark and myself here because we are social distancing, self-isolating,
but
whatever
we
this
live
is.
together, so I mean...
So we can be together.
Yeah,
but
we are together.
That means our guest cannot be with us today. So we're going to do a little different. We are going to phone call in a few different guests today and just kind of talk about what's going on with their businesses, their business owners from all across the country that we're going to talk to about how COVID-19 is maybe affecting them, and just kind of shoot the shit.
Yeah, that's what I plan to do. I don't know what you're planning to do, but I definitely plan to just shoot this shit. That's it.
So guest number one that we are going to give a call. Mark, you want to start dialing him up? His name is Ammon Jacobson, correct?
Yeah, well, to be correct, Dr. Ammon
yes,
Jacobson, but quite the entrepreneur though, guys.
He has a chiropractic office in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Yeah, but I mean, even further than that, I've known Ammon now for, I believe, probably 5 years or so, and hopefully he'll tell a little bit about how we met.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Ammon, you are live on the E-Mark and A-Mark podcast.
Well, hello, fellas. A-Mark and E-Mark, how are you?
Doing very well.
We were before you answered, we were just talking about you, and maybe before we kind of get started into just derailing your brain with questions and all that stuff, you wanna kind of tell the crowd, our audience, just a little bit about how we met, because it was quite the funny story.
Oh, you're asking me to remember things. Okay. I remember the physical location. It was downtown Freeport.
Yep.
For those, I don't know if your listeners know downtown Freeport, but
they do know.
It's a relatively small place. I was downtown, I believe, fighting some very horrible injustice. I received a parking ticket for a poorly labeled handicap parking, and for anyone who doesn't know me, I would never do this. But so I was down there and successfully won it, and I was walking across the street. And I saw you, and I don't know what you were doing. We kind of met in the middle of a crosswalk, as I recall, and I had long ago read Think and Grow Rich, and I'd always been looking for a mastermind. I'm always on the lookout for that, and E-Mark brought up a mastermind that he was creating in Freeport, Illinois, of all places. And I said, I like that. And then I think we just started talking after that. I think that's how we started. Is that what you remember?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We met at like the the stoplight there when you were like trying to cross the street, and I think I might have saved your life, but I don't know, maybe it's wishful thinking.
Right.
But yeah, I started telling you a little bit about Mastermind because I had ran into you somewhere else previously to this encounter, and you're like, yeah, dude, I'm just, I'm trying to start a business, and I'm like, yeah, dude, you should come to this group we have, and you're like, oh my gosh, dude, you wouldn't believe this, but I literally was just reading a book saying like, put what you want out there, and the right people will come your way, and lo and behold, and we met. So I thought that was a real cool story. But let's kind of dive into why we're calling you, Ammon. With the whole story that we just shared, you know, you've always been the type of person to not let obstacles get in their way, regardless of what it is, just within the many years that I've known you. And, you know, as I was talking to A-Mark, we're thinking of, you know, who would be great entrepreneurs, great business owners to call and give some insight on this whole COVID-19 situation and how they're adjusting to it, what they're doing to get through. And, you know, we came up with your name. So before we dive into that, though, kind of tell the our audience what you do.
Oh, great. First of all, thank you so much for your kind words. You know, just humbly, you know, to be recognized in any regard as such as that. Thank you for your kind words. I'm a chiropractor by trade. What I do is to really restore function to people is what I do, and so I accomplish that by if you know what a chiropractor traditionally does, I adjust people, but I also do a lot of muscle work. I do a lot of rehabilitation. I have some specialization. I help a lot of people with disc problems, bulging and herniated discs is a big part of my practice, and I also have a specialization in helping people with neuropathy. It's a big part of what I do. So that's the short version, and I guess probably don't get me started there because I'll probably talk too much there. But yeah, that's what I do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. So, Ammon, you know, you used to live in Freeport. You know, I remember a couple nights and hanging out with you, and you just had such an aspiration to go out and start your own office, open up your own clinic, and really take the bull by the horns and start your own business. And you did. So just kind of tell us real quick, what was that whole process like, and just taking the leap forward and starting that business in the beginning?
Yeah, if I can, I'll try to keep this as succinct as I can, because it was such a journey, you know, to come to even just where I'm at now. But a journey, 10 years out of graduating with my doctorate in chiropractic, coming out of school, and I worked always with other doctors as an associate doctor, and in the beginning. And not really a huge desire to have my own practice, something I always wanted long term, but I just wanted to learn the ropes. I wanted to, you know, cut my teeth, so to speak, and just kind of to go through it. And so I did that for about 5 years, and that's when it really became apparent that, you know, I need to start working towards, I need to be owning something or creating just something more long-term, you know, just American dream, typical kind of stuff, you know. And that's right when I transitioned into Freeport, Illinois, and I worked with a group out there, and that was exactly why I came out there, was to take over this 30-year practice that had been there for a long time, and they had doctors that were transitioning out and retiring, and they needed someone to step in and kind of fulfill that. And so that made the most sense to me at that point. So I picked up the family, and we moved this is probably my fourth or fifth transition in my career at this point. So there's been a lot of change over that. And so, you know, I was trying to find some real stability. I came out to Freeport. It was a really good thing. Ultimately turned out to not be the long-term thing that I initially thought it was going to be, was another stepping stone as it turned out. And it just hit me really hard at the last place I was, and this just happened to be in Freeport, that there was no way that I could continue operating in the fashion that I was. And that's probably, if I could nail it down to one statement, is that if you're not working towards your dream, you're probably in support of someone else's, or if you don't have your own plan, you're probably helping someone else fulfill their own plan, and what they have planned for you is probably not very big and not very significant. And that would get me out of bed in the morning. That would wake me up in the night, right? Is the fact that I needed to be building something, and I just, if I wasn't headed that direction, then it just wasn't a direction I needed to be headed in anymore. So that's what started the whole thing. I don't want to get off course, and so that's what kind of started it. And so I guess where would you like me to go from there? I guess.
No, absolutely. I just wanted to build a foundation for the listeners to just really get a solid understanding of where you came from and where you currently are at. So kind of unpack for us a little bit. So you moved out to Denver, in pursuit of your dreams and starting a business, opening up your own clinic, and you have one. And for a while and possibly still, you're doing pretty well. And then COVID hit. Then what?
Okay. Yeah. So from Freeport to Colorado, and most specifically Colorado Springs, just south of Denver. We're about 45 minutes south of Denver here. It was a huge journey. And just to give a little bit more background on it, it was one of the most fulfilling, but also one of the most difficult times in my life. The transition of moving your family across the country, etc., uprooting your career, putting it all on the line to own a business, to buy into a business that you're hedging your bet that it's going to be a good return on investment, and so you throw down areas and you lay your literal nuts on that rail, and are figurative and not literal yet, but figurative nuts on the rail, and just say I'm this either way, sink or swim. That something else comes to mind, and that's kind of jumping off the cliff and building a plane on the way down. That's kind of the experience, and so that kind of gave me some grit, right? And I think I don't say this lightly, but I went through some shit to do it. It was great, and I came here, but man, did I learn? Was I humbled, because every insecurity and every flaw of mine was magnified, I found out, and a lot of personal things I just had to go through. And so when COVID hit, it was like 9-10 months into business ownership and my over 10 years in practice, and had some great, just really phenomenal success coming here. And so my mindset is that I've been so I have such an attitude of there's just so much provision out there. There's so much. There's an abundance out there, and it just totally depends on how you look at it. And this is like any other challenge. Obviously, this has been a significant event in our history, anyone alive now, and in the history of the history of time. And so I looked at this like this is no different than any other challenge for me. I'm going to get through this because I've always gotten through it, and I've never not been provided for. And I always have this mindset of that it's always, all things work together for my good. That's probably a little bit more of a biblical reference, and I don't know what your readers, if they get into this a little bit, and I'll keep it pretty neutral here, but I just believe that strongly. But it's really interesting to say that, but then something like this hits, and then you close your business for 4 weeks voluntarily, and so you've got to walk in that and be like, I'm still going to pay my people. Here's your money. I believe strongly to care for my people. I kept them paid for, even though we were working a little bit, but I didn't want anybody to be high and dry ever, and I've been so blessed, so I want to disperse that, and so that's just been my attitude. But you know what? It's worked out real well. We're 7-8 weeks into this. I don't know exactly where it is. I've kind of quit paying attention, and it's kind of worked out, man. So that's been my attitude so far, and it's worked out well. So yeah.
Ammon, maybe there's been several things that you found to be effective in helping you get through this time in our history and this time in your business. But in wrapping up here, if you could just share 1 to 2 minutes of pure insight into actual tangible things that you've had to implement, which have helped you and are still helping you get through this, what would you say that one thing is?
So, just so if I can ask specifically, so for on a personal level or just on a business level, what would be most helpful?
Go ahead and share both, actually, because I think you need to personally be able to withstand these times in order for your business to withstand these times. So I do think they are, interlinked.
Yeah, I think something that's really struck me, and this has really resonated in just deep in me, is when you get time in life, there's seasons to things, and you can have a season where things are really rolling well, and then sometimes when it's receding and it's pulling back, and that's definitely what's happened. But what's been amazing about this time is the actual gift of time. And so what I've done, and I think this has been true many times in my life, and these have been huge crossroad times in my life when big things have happened. But when you get a gift of time like you have, use it to better yourself and your business. And everyone, that's not groundbreaking information for anybody, but I've been closed for 4 weeks, for instance, and so I use that time to make sure all of my equipment was all gone through and make sure it's operating at 100%. I've replaced a lot of things. I put in a new X-ray. I've built walls, and so the world shifted, and I got this gift of time, and I took it and I used the time. And so on the other side of it, I've always reaped the benefit of that. I've got a big return on that investment. And so if anybody listening, and you still have time because this thing's still going, is use this time that you've been gifted in your business to grow it, to grow as a person with your family. Obviously, you can apply that to a lot of different things, but that's on a business and a personal level. Recognize when you have a season of rest and you can better those things. Take advantage of the time that's been gifted to you so you can leverage that in the future. If I could say that would be it.
That's great insight. And Ammon, thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show here. Dude, it's great talking to you. And again, super grateful for the insight that you shared with our listeners. We appreciate it, bro.
Much love. Thank you, guys. Have a good one. I'll talk to you. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, next up we have Patrick McBride, I believe, correct?
Yeah, we got Patrick McBride here, and let's give him a ring. See if he answers. Gosh, that was good stuff from him in there.
Good insight.
I have a
Successful
feeling,
business owner.
Yeah, I have a feeling this podcast is going to be filled with a lot of good stuff.
Hi, you've reached the cell phone of Patrick McBride. I'm sorry I'm unavailable at this time.
We got a voicemail.
Leave me a quick message, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks.
At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Patrick, you are on the E-Mark and A-Mark show.
Welcome.
We're going to have a conversation with your voicemail since it was more interested in talking to us. So, yeah, well, here we go.
How are you doing tonight?
All right, well, we tried. We'll try you again. Bye-bye, Patrick.
All right, moving on to Mark Diddens.
Mark Diddens, he's up next. Let's go.
I believe Mark Diddens is another one of those initially interacted with him through Mastermind.
Gosh, how did I meet?
He showed up at a Mastermind once, and
I first met Mark actually at the YMCA
Oh,
way back in the day. Yeah, Mark's a good guy. He used to show up there playing basketball with his son.
Hello?
there he is.
Mark, are you live? Are you here? Is this you?
It's me. What's up, E-Mark? What's up, Alex?
Hey there, Mark. You're on live on the E-Mark and A-Mark show. How you
I'm
doing
honored
this
to be
evening?
here, guys. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, absolutely. Did we make all your hopes and dreams come true by having you on this podcast?
Absolutely. Some of the podcasts, and I've just been waiting for the moment I can be on it, so finally.
And the moment has arrived.
And who would thought that it would take COVID-19 to get you live on our show, huh?
Yeah, unbelievable. What a terrible reason to be on the show.
So Mark,
Could you
really,
have called me for something more positive?
yeah, right.
We'll make it positive. You know me.
That's the goal. I mean, really, tonight we want to talk a little bit about COVID-19, how it's affecting businesses and business owners, and what they're doing to get through it. But before we get there, could you take maybe 30 seconds, a minute, and let people know, your story in a nutshell of what it is you do, what your business is?
Okay, sure. So I'm Mark Diddens. I started Precision Landscape 21 years ago. I was 23 years old, and I was, no college education, but I found landscaping, loved it. So, again, age 23, started a business with just one used truck and one employee. And now 21 years later, we have about almost 20 employees, 10 trucks, and we're just doing tons and tons of landscape business.
So, Mark,
So it's a real grassroots business that we started from scratch, and it's just been a super fun ride.
Mark, I had to interrupt real quick and let people know that, the inside joke with, you, myself, and A-Mark here is, we call your company the Black Plague because you have these black trucks that you see everywhere in town. You just can't miss them. I mean, it's your company. I mean, you're everywhere. So for our listeners, we may refer to that phrase, the Black Plague. We're definitely referring to the many and plethora of trucks that Mark has everywhere.
Yeah.
So it is fitting that we're talking about a pandemic because we're a pandemic in ourselves.
That's awesome. So, Mark, 21 years in business. Have you ever seen anything like this that's affected the world like this or businesses like this in your 21 years of being an entrepreneur?
Absolutely not. And that was key. I mean, as this thing was all unfolding, that's all I could think is I've never seen anything like this. And I was even asking, some of the old timers that I work with and have for customers and meet along the way. And I was kind of asking the same thing. Have you ever in your lifetime seen anything like this? And even people who are 50, 60 years old had said, no, this is completely different.
Interesting. So as you started to see this unfold, I mean, did you take any preparations for your business or what was your initial reaction when you started seeing this unfold with COVID-19?
Yeah, I got to say that this was one of the most stressful times in my whole entire life and in my whole entire career. As this thing was unfolding, all I could think was, please do not shut us down. I mean, I just couldn't imagine all the, blood, sweat, and tears I've put into this business for my whole entire life. And if we couldn't go to work, I mean, it would crush the whole company quickly. Very, very stressful, very, very stressful, and scary. And so I started to build a case for myself, okay, well, if I get pulled over by the police, how am I going to convince them that I'm essential? Because I think I'm essential, and I'm sure all businesses think they're essential.
Right.
Right.
So as the thing unfolded, I read the executive order from Governor Pritzker, and there was a section that I found, and it listed construction, building, and things like as I read on it, it said exterminators, and I'm thinking, okay, well, we're kind of an exterminator. We spray weeds, we spray insects, Painters were listed, all these different businesses that were kind of similar to ours, but not listed, but landscapers were not listed. But I was convinced that we were essential anyway. But again, it was more of like a hope and a prayer, and we kind of went from there. But it was super scary. And what I realized about my business, and I think this is true for a lot of businesses and maybe all of America, we're fragile. Nobody has planned for this kind of thing. And although we have some savings that we could get through, say a month or two or something, but 6 months, a year and a half, I mean, nobody plans for this kind of thing.
Yeah. And Mark, I want to kind of dive a little bit into something that you said that really resonated with me. And I think a lot of other entrepreneurs and business owners out there is, it was that deep yearning you had, in saying, please don't let this shut us down. Please don't let this be the end of us. And, I know myself and definitely A-Mark here, we can definitely relate to that because that was the cry of our hearts too, we were in the fetal position, about in tears, So
I don't know about that. But I don't know.
Mentally, that was the position we were in. So we definitely feel that too. But kind of, break it down for us a little bit, Mark, if you don't mind. Why was that such a big concern for you? I mean, this is not to minimize your business or any business out there, but at the end of the day, a business is a business. I mean, heck, you could go start another business. You could find another job. And for all I know, you have millions of dollars stashed. I mean, but why did you care so much about going out of business? What was the deep thing inside you that, that you really, truly didn't want to lose?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the obvious ones is just, my financial responsibilities to pay my mortgage and, pay for our, payments, our cars and trucks and things like that. But, as a business owner, I've always taken a ton of pride in the fact that, well, there's a lot of mouths that we feed, right? We have a lot of employees, and those employees have spouses and girlfriends, they have children, they have mortgages. it's crushing to think that not only my life could be, just up in smoke or whatever, just disintegrate overnight, but there's a lot of families that depend on this business, and we take a lot of pride in that. And it's really terrifying to just think about watching that crumble.
And Mark, and I asked that question very intentionally because I figured, knowing you, Mark, I know you quite well. We've had some, very deep conversations, and and I knew that's what you were gonna say. It's not just a matter of losing the business; it's really the people that depend on you. It's the people that you provide for, and quite frankly, the relationships and friendships you've been able to build with these people that rely on you. And yeah, I was definitely expecting that answer out of you, and that really speaks.
Yeah, thing. Can I elaborate on it too?
Absolutely.
And then the equal and opposite reaction, since we were able to stay, and even if we had gone through the tough time and the the crisis, if we would have had to shut down, I'm sure we would have all stayed close. But the fact that we could continue to work, I mean, that has done something to our group of people that work at Sparrow. It's incredible how much closer we've become. I mean, we were like family anyway, but we almost truly feel like we're family at this point. Mm. And all at the same time, I actually had one of my employees lost his father, just out of nowhere, died of a heart attack. No warning signs whatsoever, but this all happened during the first 2 weeks of this COVID shutdown. And that coupled with the COVID crisis has brought our team together just like you couldn't even imagine. We have a really tight bond.
And Mark, something interesting, that I know is going to happen during this time and after this time is, some people unfortunately will go out of business. And some people are thriving as a result of this COVID epidemic. And some businesses will come out very strong at the end of this. What's that one thing perhaps you think you've learned through this experience that's shaping the future of your company?
Yeah, it's a biggie, actually. One of the things I realized is that our business is essential, and that's a game changer because so I'm a guy, again, who didn't get a college education, and what I did is I started mowing grass, like the 12-year-old kid does, and, made it work and made it a successful business out of it. Mm-hmm. But I've always had this feeling inside that, hey, I'm, all I do here is mow grass like the 12-year-old kid down the street. He can do it too. No big deal, right?
Sure.
But what we learned is that our business is essential and what we do is important. And, to a certain extent, we maintain order in our community. We keep things looking good. We keep things safe. We keep things sanitary. And I never would have expected that to happen, but that's something I learned about our business. I feel so proud of that. I feel very secure in the business that we have. I think it's going to be a game changer for us as we go forward because I think when COVID is over and everybody goes back to work, people are going to reconsider their occupation. And non-essential services, I think, are going to have a hard time employing people. And I think essential services are going to have people knocking at the doors looking for a job.
That's a unique perspective that I didn't even think of, Mark. Yeah, you're probably right on that. That people are really going to look into the types of jobs and careers that they take on. But Mark, kind of share with the audience here. To what degree has this impacted you from, I know you say, you're still able to keep your guys employed, but has business slowed down at all? I mean, I know you're essential and all, but I mean, are people skeptical to let you in the yard? And what has that been like?
Yeah, so far you could say that there's been no change, I would say. Very little, and I'm surprised because at first I was afraid that we were going to get cancellations on, say, lawn mowing services and fertilizing services and stuff like that. I thought that we might lose, even though we could be essential, I thought we might lose 10 or 25% or even 50% of our contracts and things like that. But, I believe there's been there's zero cancellations that I know about.
Wow.
That are COVID related. One of our major commercial accounts did contact us and say, only do essential maintenance services. If there's any projects, scheduled, to cancel them. But fortunately, we didn't have any projects scheduled with that customer at the time. But I almost hate to say it because I feel, I want to be sensitive to those who are suffering through this crisis. But we have gone so far unscathed up to this point.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And do you have
and in fact, we're having, E-Mark, we just rebranded the company. We changed our name from Precision Landscape to Sparrow. And we were looking forward to that being kind of a boost, maybe we get some new customers out of it and things like that. And I got to say, we're busier than ever. We are honestly, I don't think we're getting more business because of COVID, but we are busier than ever. Landscape sales are up huge, maybe doubled. Lawn care sales are, up probably 20%, and we're going nuts. So it's kind of crazy.
So Mark, when you were thinking that, business might drop 10, 20, even upwards of 50%, did you start to formulate a plan of attack of what you would do in the event that would happen? If you would have lost 50% of business in, let's say, a week time span, like a lot of businesses did, what would have you done?
Yeah, so we did not formulate a plan. We didn't sit down and put the pencil to paper and really decide what we would do. I guess, we would have had to react and probably, lay people off. And, we're used to being seasonal. We're a seasonal employer. So we know that many of our expenses are variable. Mm-hmm. So, our fixed expenses are just not all that difficult to cover, actually. If we were just if we had to lay off our whole entire workforce, but we could keep working, just even on a minimal basis, we know how to do that, actually. We do it every winter.
Right.
So I think, we would know how to adapt and overcome. I mean, it just depends on how bad the thing would get. But I think that would be the first thing, is just lay some people off. They could collect unemployment like a lot of the other Americans. And,
right.
And we would hunker down and kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm. Mark, what would be your final closing thought to people listening to you now? Keep in mind there could be various types of people across a huge spectrum from, they work for somebody and don't have a job, or, they're thinking of starting a side hustle, or they've started a side hustle and they're doing pretty well, or, and perhaps the other person is, hey, listen to this guy. Fuck him. He's doing good in his business. I hope he closes down tomorrow. I mean, what would be your thought to these people? What would be your suggestion?
Yeah. So as a closing thought, that's interesting. I was going to close with being an essential service and talk about how I'm optimistic about the business and some of that kind of thing. If I'm thinking about what to suggest to people is to, think about jobs in kind of a different way like that. But one thing I'll just say, because it's almost like a public service announcement, because I have the floor here, but I'm also a county board member. And one of the things the county is doing is we're keeping track of the government, or the federal government and state government. They let us know that there could be some relief money for all the additional expenses that we have that are COVID related, any losses and expenses that we have. So we're tracking all of these expenses and losses meticulously, and we're going to send those to FEMA and Illinois Emergency Management. And they've told us that we're going to get some grant money to cover some of those expenses. So I just told one of my customers this afternoon, and I'll tell everybody that it's just not a bad idea to start tracking your expenses that are related to COVID and your losses that are related to COVID. Because the government, I believe, is going to continue to do the best they can to make this right for all American citizens. They're already sending out stimulus checks and grant money for businesses and things like that. But I think more is going to come. I think that's going to be long-lasting. And I think that tracking your expenses and losses in good documentation is going to be important for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. Well, before we end, though, I know Mark said last thing. I would like to hear a little bit more about, you were saying how people should look at employment maybe differently, how you were planning to end out. Could you expand on that just a little bit in the last few minutes?
Yeah, one of the things I'm afraid is never going to, and never is a strong word, but I just wonder how we're ever going to get back to going to concerts and going to movies and, having big parties and things like that. Going to the theater and stuff like that. And I just think that if there's one, it seems like that's going to suffer the most, that segment, if you work in that segment. And I just think that there's a big spectrum of essential all the way down to leisure, and there's things to think about as far as people getting together for your work, or how many people get together and how closely. But yeah, I think those considerations really need to be made, and I'm afraid life is going to change forever going forward in that way when it comes to big communal events and getting a bunch of people stuffed into a building together. So I just think that's something that everyone could consider as we go forward. And I don't know, when choosing a job, I think that's going to have to be a consideration when choosing a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a job that's essential, because we never know when something, whether it's this or something else, happens, that those types of jobs are not available anymore and people are out of work. It would be interesting to see what types of things get automated and different jobs open up because of this, for sure.
Yeah, Mark, thank you.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting watching some of these TV shows, late night TV shows, and whatever. They're doing them from their home,
right?
It's going to be interesting to watch that all change. I think there's going to be a whole new dynamic, nothing we ever saw or even could have imagined. But I think a lot of stuff might become remote and more technological and like that. So it's gonna be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mark, we appreciate you coming on, man. This has been a great time talking to you. I think you really provide a lot of insight and value to myself, and I'm pretty sure A-Mark as well, and our audience listening. So thank you so much, man.
Yep, look forward to having you back.
A-Mark. Thanks, man. Good talking to you guys.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
And that was Mark Diddens.
That was Mark Diddens with, so as you heard in the beginning, he started Precision, and now he rebranded to Sparrow Lawn. So you can check them out online. But my gosh, that was awesome. Those were good conversations. And, in wrapping up here, guys, maybe Alex and I, A-Mark and I will take just a couple minutes just to kind of share perhaps a little bit what we're doing in our own business to respond to this whole COVID epidemic that's going on. Go ahead and...
Yeah. Working a lot of long hours between both businesses that we're involved in, trying to make them work. One of our businesses was deemed essential, being a home service, home improvement type company, but it's still tough. It's based mainly in the Chicago area, and people are understandably leery about letting us in their homes. Mm-hmm. So that's been tough keeping that afloat. We want to do our best to keep the team fully employed, keep sales rolling in, but it's not the best time for that. But really just trying to double down on our marketing. You hear a lot of people stopping their marketing in times like this, cutting non-essential expenses, where we've really doubled down on the marketing we're doing for that specific company to try to build our brand equity, try to get the leads we need to survive on that end of the company.
Yeah, and a piece of advice for those listening, if you own a business right now, or even work for a company, something good to perhaps share with the CEO or whoever's running this business is, to just kind of expand on Alex's point here. Don't cut back on your marketing in this time. And we're not saying that because we own a marketing agency and we're hoping you come to us or send referrals our way. That'd be awesome. We welcome them. But the reason I'm saying this is because it's just off of pure logic. Think about it, right? McDonald's is out there, and by far they are the biggest fast food franchise. you ask the kid where they want to go to eat and you stack up Wendy's, Dairy Queen, and McDonald's next, all in the line, they're probably going to choose McDonald's because McDonald's has market share, right? They know McDonald's. And it's the same thing in this time of COVID-19. Like, one thing that's gonna happen is those companies who decide to scale back their marketing, I mean, they're just allowing other companies, their competitors, to gain market share on them. And, when this is over, those companies who didn't back out of their marketing and rather double down on it, they're going to gain that market share. They'll be miles ahead of the competition because, the people who are online, they're wanting to see something. Facebook is going to show them something. Google's going to show them something. And if it's not you, it's definitely going to be your competitors. So just a strong piece of advice for you. Now is not the time to back out of marketing. If anything, double, triple, quadruple down on that shit, because trust me, you will thank us later. And with that being said, I am signing out.
Signing out. We'll be back soon with another episode of E-Mark and A-Mark. Maybe underground, maybe in space. We'll see.